once again, this is Bobby Buck from the Bobby Buck Show podcast. I want y'all to get ready for this show. This is going to be, like I said, we're doing a topic speaking on mental illness, as y'all already know, that runs very rapid within our community. And so tonight, I have as my guest, I got Mr. Reverend Frederick Shaw and Miss Vicky Love on this episode tonight. And we're going to be speaking about psychiatry and racism and psychiatry within religion. And what I'm going to do is kind of sit back and let Reverend Shaw run off with this, because this is his cup of tea right here. And I'm going to sit back and take a couple sips. So you go ahead and take it off, Reverend Shaw.
Well, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you allowing me to be back on the show again and to express the viewpoints, especially those things that most people do not know. When you look at the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, we are a human rights organization that exposes psychiatric abuses. We're a watchdog in the industry, and we tell what's really going on behind the scenes. And so when you look at the abusive nature of psychiatry, you find that there's been a history of them basically labeling and misusing people of color in that system.
Mm. Mm. So what do you think about that?
Oh, go ahead.
Think you got anything to say about that so far, or you want to let him keep it rolling?
No, I was letting him keep rolling.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So if you look at Dr. Benjamin Rush, who is considered the father of psychiatry, Dr. Rush had came with a word called negritude. Now, here's a man that went down in history as an abolitionist, that's supposed to have cared about Black people or whatever, but out of his own mouth, and it set the tone for what would happen in psychiatry after that. He said that Black people's skin was dark because we had a disease akin to leprosy, and that white people should stay away from Black people, and that the only way you could know if a Black person was well or sane was if they turned white. And so the whole thing that we saw in our communities, where light skin was better than dark skin and everything light was right, and if you was Black, you had to get back, all of those things are related in some way or form to the philosophy of mental health, which was labeled negritude, which said that about Black people. So when we look at the history, even in slavery, they came up with a word called drapetomania. And drepida meant runaway slave, and mania meant crazy. And they said that if a slave ran away from his condition, he was mentally ill. It didn't matter that you could pass that slave's wife around to all your friends. It did not matter that you could sell that slave's children, or even rape and maim and whip and abuse that slave. But they said that if he ran away, then that slave was mentally ill. Disobedience was considered a mental illness, which is actually what they're trying to do today with these children. The fact that if you backtalk, they considered it a mental illness. So and this is just the beginning. I can go on how Black people have been labeled and abused and misused by this system of psychiatry.
Man. So what about you, Vicky?
So when you look at, oh, go ahead.
No, because I was going to say, Vicky, you had been in that field before, right? So you used to
yes, I specialize in mental health, behavioral health. I worked 27 years in behavioral health, and my views on what he just said, he said abuse of color. I had seen abuse of all races, not just Blacks, but a lot of Blacks have been abused in this system, but also other races as well. unfair just due that I have seen in the 27 years that I have been in this field. It was for all races.
And I agree with that. The only reason why I singled out the Black race is because part of the labeling of the show was racism. But you are absolutely right. People of all colors, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, have been abused in that system. And the system, the rabbit hole of the system even goes deeper. I've been studying this problem about the same amount of time that you was in the industry. I've been a working advocate with Citizens Commission Human Rights for over 25 years. I was at the Truth and Reconciliation hearings in South Africa when Nelson Mandela was there. I met with Bishop Tutu and different people about this issue. And but you are absolutely right. It's just not limited to African Americans, but African Americans through the eugenics system, which we saw in Nazi Germany and stuff, which led to the Tuskegee experiment and all of these different things, are part of what's going on. And that is usually an attack on the minorities or the helpless group. In the Nazi Germany, Polish people were also executed who were white, but because they weren't considered pure. So yeah, you're right. This is something that has been going on a long time, and it's been attacking all races, to tell the truth about
it. Yeah, so Vicky, like, was it some things that you had seen, certain types of abuse?
Yes, it was from physical, emotional, mental, verbal, even down to the insurance, financial part of it, a whole aspect of it. I've seen a little bit of everything in this profession.
Wow.
Yeah. How they abused the system. You had patients that how they would bill the insurance. You had patients that would come in that didn't know what day it was, what time it was. They would come in with their belongings. They would take homeless people off the streets and bring them in if the census was low, just so that they could have ratings, far as the staffing.
So they get their numbers up?
To get their numbers up. That's what I was trying to say, to get their numbers up. Yes. And a lot of times people that were there that needed help, they let them go. But the ones that did the hospital hopping, the ones that came there for 3 meals in a cot, played the crazy role, they let them stay. And they would take them and they would dump them. And I seen this even before they had even started announced it on the news, before it became a noticeable thing that they were doing. They would take the patients and they would dump them down in Skid Row or take them anywhere. They would tell the taxi, just take them down and just let them out of Skid Row, just dump them anywhere, and then you looked up and then it was a big old thing. And I thought our hospital was just doing it. But when it started becoming a public thing, I found out that it was other hospitals that was doing it as well, because their insurance, their insurance only covered for so long. If they didn't have that good insurance, that red, white, and blue card along with that blue and white card, or that Medi-Cal, then they only gave them so many days, but they really needed the help. But then you had those that came in that, were addicts, that needed a place to stay, and they would come in and play that crazy role, and they would stay there, as long as they needed to, because they had the good insurance, the red, white, and blue card. That made a lot of difference in a lot of the help. And so a lot of the patients, they end up going through the cracks, the ones that really needed the help. And the ones that didn't, they got the best treatments.
It's our system, huh?
And see, when you look, And when you look at that, she's absolutely right. Because what she's saying in a nutshell, it was about the money. It wasn't about helping the individual. It was about the money.
About the money. It's still about the money. I mean, you know, patient care, you know, not everybody that's in the industry, you know, the nursing, the medical profession, not everybody that's in there, and I want to make that very clear, not everybody that's in the medical profession, whether it's nurses, doctors, social workers, everybody is not there for a check. I remember back in the day when we were going to school for nursing, we had instructors that cared about the patients, not about the dollar. And if you had a student, you had instructors that seen that if the student didn't have compassion for the patients during the rotation, what they would do, they would put them out of the program. And they would let you know before you started, if you don't have compassion and this, you're not going to have compassion and you're not going to love what you're doing here, this is not the business for you. But the medical profession has become this big money-making industry to where people would take the tests and pass the test. They would have other people take the test for them and get the license, and they would learn as they go. Well, unfortunately, a lot of people, you know, had to be the guinea pig of these learning as you go nurses. And, you know, the healthcare industry is not like it used to be. You have those that do care, but the ones that's there for the paycheck outweighs the ones that do care. And when you find ones that do have the compassion, that do care about the patients and stuff, those are the ones singled out, and those are the ones that are picked on when they stand up and fight for the patients. I was always getting wrote up. I was getting suspended. I was always getting in trouble because I was always going to bat for the patients. But as long as I was on the other side, which I didn't have that heart to be, you know, I was fine. But when I stood up for the patients, when I, you know, had their interest at heart, you know, I always got in trouble. And I could never figure out, why was I always getting in trouble? Why was I always being singled out? Until I figured out, oh, well, you know, you got these people here that all they hear is for is a check. That's it. They're not here to care about these patients. They can care less. They can give a rat's ass about these patients, but I have a heart, and I looked at it as I have family. This could be my mother. This could be my father, my brother, my sister, my cousin, my uncle, you know, my niece, my nephew. You know, I looked at it as that, you know. So I took my job very seriously, where others that I worked with, unfortunately, it was just a check to them. And so the patients were neglected far as, you know, getting the quality of care that they deserved and that they much needed because of the lack of compassion, I should say. We need to bring that back, because it's sad when, you know, you come in and you're looked at as a crazy person. You're not, you know, a lot of times you're not looked at when you're in this profession, and a person that comes in that's mentally ill, and you're there for the check, you don't look at that person as a person with problems. Oh, that's another crazy person. Oh, just admit him, go ahead and do the routine, you know, go on and, you know. And unfortunately, that care or that treatment that they come there to get, a lot of times they don't receive. So when they send them back out, they end up back in because they didn't get the proper treatment that they should have gotten the first time that they were there. Now, you have a lot of success stories. You have a lot of patients who have had mental breakdowns, who have had some type of depression, a suicidal kind of ideation, and they were able to come in and get treatment and get themselves together and go on out there and live normal lives, whereas for others have been like a revolving door. In and out, in and out. You let this person out and they go to the boarding care, and they didn't take their medicine in 2 days. They right back in the unit, you know, running around, you know, trying to get back balanced. But like I said, the boarding cares, you know, the staff, you know, a lot of the boarding cares, it was just for the money making, money.
Right.
Money.
And,
so the patient
and you know,
Yeah, that's like me when I was in and out to rehab, and it's mainly there they wanted the money, but the one time where I got sober, been sober for like 13 years, I went to a rehab out here in Glendale, and I used to hate going to outpatient. But I went to that outpatient, but then they started explaining it to me why I was going through. That's the first time I ever had, they really cared. And guess what? They ran out of funding.
And then let me add something to this, because I want to tell what research is actually saying. There's the viewpoint of the people who make the money, but there's actual facts that under the current mental health system, suicides have gone up, homeless population has exploded, veterans are killing themselves at 20 to 22 a day. And I just want to make sure, because when they do the research on this, they're finding out that a large percentage of these people killing themselves are on these psychiatric drugs. And even in the commercials themselves, they advertise that these drugs could cause a suicidal ideation. So I just want to make sure that when we're thinking about what is the correct care is when the person comes out of the situation better than when they went in. And I'm not going to dispute in the mental health system, especially sometimes maybe when people are therapists or whatever, and they just talking and helping the person get through it. But these drugs are very dangerous drugs. And I would just caution saying, when clinical trials prove that these things cause suicidal and hallucination and homicide and things like that, that we careful what we give people. Because if we got 10 people who do well and 10 people who die, I don't know if it's that good a treatment. I'm not going to try to fight right now about that, but I'm looking at the fact that we got 6.7 million children on psychiatric drugs, and it is hard for me to believe that 6.7 million children are mentally ill. And I want to make sure that they're not giving us labels and drugs for conditions, for mental states that are appropriate for the condition that we're in. So if my mother dies and I feel sadness, or like they label depression, well, isn't sadness the correct reaction to something like that? So I just want to make sure that when we're looking at it,
sadness. You said the key word, sadness. Depression comes before suicide. And what a lot of people misjudge, they think that because they think mental illness consists of schizophrenic, bipolar, manic depressive, schizoaffective, all of these things. They leave out depression. Depression comes before suicide. You have people that is extremely depressed, and you get so depressed, how can I put it? What people don't understand, you can kill your own self with your own mind through depression. You get so depressed to where you lose all hope, and you're hurting, and you figure, well, I'll just take this little bit of 5 seconds of pain and it'll be over with, and I don't have to deal with this anymore. If people would stop, if you had people in the medical industry profession that would look at human beings as human beings and look at the signs of depression, signs of suicide, signs that there's something going on. They trained us when a patient came to the unit, within them first few hours, we were able to scope them out, see if they were agitated, see where they were coming from, get in their head, see what they were about. So we knew how to go about treating them. Sometimes, you have a person that'll have an outburst, and they say, oh, they're having a psychotic episode. Give them some Ativan. They're just having an outburst. They're just letting out something that's been inside of them for a long time. Whether it's frustration, anger, whether it's hurt, whether it's pain, they're just letting out something. And like you said, 6.7 million, kids, no, it ain't no 6.7 million kids that's got psychiatric problems. They are labeling them, like you said, they're labeling them to give them the medicine. That's another way of making money. I'm from the old school. When you had an outburst, your parents were there, and you know what our parents did. You know, we was crazy with the 50 card, with the shoe, with the belt. You know, they didn't took all the discipline out. You know, I understand that there's a lot of form of abuse where people have taken it and overran it, you know, far as overdoing it, far as the abuse. But you do have parents that do discipline their children the right way, whether, you know, they spank them, put them on timeout, punishment, or whatever. I've had kids tell me, you know, I made a comment one day to a child. I said, if you don't stop that, I'm going to spank you. You can't hit me. That's child abuse. And I was like, I'm from the old school. I will beat your behind and dare your parents' tonsils to move. I am not the one, you know. But then they train these kids, if they yell at you, if they scream at you, if they hit you, if they do put you in timeout the wrong way, you know, that's abuse. And so these kids, they're instilling this in them at a young age, to where the parents are fearing their kids. They're scared to discipline them because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to get them taken. But my thing is, it's going to take something to bring back the tradition. We've lost the tradition somewhere.
But let me tell you what happened. In the mid-1960s, they passed the law that allowed them to treat children with these drugs. And they went to our schools, because they came to my elementary school, and they told us that our parents could no longer spank us, and if they did, to call the police. That very day, my sister didn't come home like she was supposed to. And when she got home, my mother said, how come you didn't come home like you were supposed to? My teacher said, you cannot spank me. So my mother spanked her anyway. Then my sister went and called the police.
Oh.
Now, in that day, when the police came, my mother spanked her in front of the police, and they said, well, this looks like a healthy home, and walked off. But the problem is now they can't do that. In the 80s, when I was a sheriff deputy, it was practically mandatory that you had to take action. You had to write a report. You had to sometime take a parent into custody. You had to call children's services, and all of that came in. But the idea was this: they knew in mental health that if you could not discipline your child, that your child would run amok. Mm-hmm. And at some point, as he got older and you could not spank them, you would have to refer him to mental health. And this was a plot that was actually done. You know, so it's like they can come up with all of the trainings, all of that, but look how many years that they said that mental illness was caused by chemical imbalance in the brain. And then that's some of the top psychiatrists in the world have denounced that. So, but we operated all these years based on these drugs, correcting a chemical imbalance of the brain, when now that they say, well, there wasn't no chemical imbalance of the brain.
Exactly, my point.
So,
exactly.
so then what are we giving the drugs for? You see? And so what
it's
we're doing—
money-making industry, pharmaceutical, it's a money-making industry.
There it is.
Money-making
there
industry.
It is.
I mean, you know, and it's sad because they will pay for stuff. They will pay for medications, narcotics, before they would pay for something that would preserve life. Now,
that's right.
I was caught up in that years ago. Now, you were giving me oxycodone, Norco, Soma,
Wow.
and Ambien. 180 oxycodones, 150 Somas, 90 Xanax, 120 Norcos, and 30 Ambiens, all in the same prescription. Now you guys will pay $2,200 and some a month for me to have this medicine. But you guys couldn't pay $52 for me to have some AccuCheck strips to check my sugar. Insurance didn't pay for that.
And you are absolutely right.
I didn't understand that. I said something that will preserve your life, something that will help you. That's when I realized then, I said, wow, we're in trouble. I said, because something that will preserve your life, you have to pay for out of your pocket if you want to live. And something that will kill you, they're willing to pay for it. And it's like, wow, are you serious?
That's deep right there.
Are you serious? I realized then, I said, Lord Jesus, I'm in trouble. I don't need these meds. I need to leave these alone because these are not for me. And the sad part about it, I went to the same hospital. I was sick. I went to the doctor's office to have my labs drawn, and I passed out in the doctor's office. So the nurse wheeled me over to 22 years. Good employee, faithful, dedicated, volunteered, hard worker, you know, worked, did corporate events, all that. You know, I was well known around the hospital. I go there, they wheel me to emergency, but they look at the list of medications that I was taking, the ones that I just listed, on top of the other medications, the high blood pressure, cholesterol, and stuff that I was taking. They looked at all of that, and the workers that I could communicate with, we partied and fellowship with. I did some of their family homegoing services, you know, some of their parties. Same workers, they looked at me as like I was a junkie. And that really hurted me because they put me over in a corner and made me wait when actually I was going through a breakdown. I didn't know that I was going through a breakdown. I was so depressed that it had gotten beyond me realizing that I was depressed and going through a breakdown. And they put me over in the corner and waited for another doctor to come in to see me. And one of the doctors was a well-known doctor that knew me. And he called my doctor and they let me go home. Now I'm dizzy, remind you, I'm dizzy. I can't get up and I can't go. They tried to get my blood. My blood was so thick it wouldn't come out. That's how dehydrated I was. So they let me go. I could not walk to my car. They wheeled me from the emergency room all the way around on the other side of the hospital. They wheeled me from Martin Luther King in Imperial all the way around to, I think the street called Birch and Imperial, all the way around on the other side by the psych unit. They wheeled me to my car. And they left me there to try to drive home. And I called my friend, and she stayed on the phone with me while I tried to drive home. And I'm taking the back streets, driving 15, 20 miles an hour and getting the red lights so that I don't be on the main street and hit nobody. And they left me like that to go home. And I couldn't believe how much the patient care had changed. And that hurted me really bad. And to this day, I won't go there anymore.
Wow.
The way I was treated, I won't go there. Because I couldn't believe these are workers that I worked with for years. You guys know me, but they looked at me as a junkie. They put me out when, in fact, I really needed help. Had they took the time, they would have seen that I was severely depressed. They would have seen that I was in the beginning stage of a nervous breakdown. They didn't see that. I went to I end up going to Martin Luther King. They were able to see all the things that St. wasn't able to see, that they never took the time to see. And I end up having a breakdown. But I was able to put my life back together, going through Martin Luther King in the program that they had there. And those nurses and those people in that program, they are very compassionate and they really care about you. They care about you as a person, as a human being first. They helped me get my life back together. And the person that I was then and the person that I am today is two different persons. People see me on social media. They see me on there singing and everything. They see the glory, but they don't know the story. I was out there singing, taking psychotropic meds. I was out there the next month after I had a mental breakdown and I was in the psych unit. I was like, how in the hell did this happen? I'm used to telling people how to put their life back together, counseling, therapy, one-on-one sessions, group sessions. And I end up on the other side where people are telling me how to put my life back together. I mean, to where it was to the point to where I was forgetting to comb my hair. I was forgetting to brush my teeth. I was forgetting to put on simple things as a bra and panties. I mean, I was forgetting the little simple things because my mind wasn't connecting and telling me these little simple things that we take for granted, people take for granted. So I don't take nothing for granted anymore, because when you one step away from losing your mind, and God kept me in the midst of it all, and he gave me my mind and he kept me from losing it completely. And now that I've got it back, I'm not willing to go through the changes that I went through. I suffered from depression, but I had got so depressed after my mother had passed, and it was a buildup. It was year after year after year. So that 5th year of my mom being gone, the pain was so bad that it was like a trigger, like a domino effect, a trigger. And I just broke. Everything just happened all at once, and I just broke. You know, that's why my tolerance is, I don't tolerate the things I used to tolerate. You know, I don't deal with the drama I used to deal with anymore. I'm peacefuler, I'm happier. The friends that I had, I don't have them anymore, because, you know, when all the money and all the spending was gone, they were gone too, you know, and I'm glad they were, because when I got my mind back together, got back focused and got my career just started soaring. Now I have these people that's trying to come back in my life, and it's like, no, yeah, I'm good.
You gotta be careful with that.
I'm more wiser, and my senses are more intact now, to where I can see bullshit now. Yeah, you know, you can't bullshit the bullshitter. And I done got too old, excuse my language, I done got too old. I was a young fool. I done got too old to be an old fool. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, you know, that's the story of that. You know, had I gotten the treatment then, the moral of the story is, had I got the treatment then, and they would have seen that there was a problem then, it wouldn't have got as bad as it did, you know, when I did end up in the hospital.
I'm glad you made it.
Well, I think one of the things, though, you just said, and as a minister, this is one of the things that I deal with, is you can help people by helping them realize their spirituality, and to do exactly what you said, spot the people in your life that's causing you the pain. And sometimes we think people come to our rescue when we lose our parents and stuff, and those people keep us stuck in that grief and that misery and things like that, and they don't necessarily help us out. One of the things I want to point,
they just keep you stuck, and they keep you full of heartache and pain, you know, especially when they see that you're vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, it's easy for the narcissist to come in and manipulate, and it's easy for other people to come in and manipulate you and take your kindness and take you as a person, human being, for granted, because you are vulnerable. you are, you know, open for suggestions. So they just come right on in, and you don't realize that's what's going on, because you're looking for acceptance, you're looking for approval, and you're looking for friendship, love, companion. So you make the wrong decisions and the wrong choices, not realizing that's what you're doing because of your vulnerability. So I've learned, you know, even with the depression, you know, I learned the trigger points, you know, and 4 years of therapy, you know, I learned the trigger points. You know, if I'm feeling bad or something, it's okay to lay around, sit around for a couple of days, you know, have a little pity party or whatever. But that third day, it's like, get up, let's go. You know, I learned the trigger points. I learned not to let myself get back to that again, because when you're one step away from death's door, when you at death's door and you got to make a decision, that's when I realized I could have killed my own self with my own mind, because of the depression, because of the hurt, the heartache, and the pain. I see why people die of a broken heart, and you know, they say, oh, they died of a broken. How could you die of a broken heart? I don't want to know no more, you know, because all the things that I wondered why this and why that, I experienced. So I don't wonder nothing else no more. No, I try to stay sane, and I try to keep people around me that's positive and that's sane as well. And I don't tolerate the drama anymore. But this mental health situation, like I said, is very bad. But like I said, had they took the time to look at me as a person and see, oh, there's more going on here besides an addict. You know, I could have got some help long before I broke. You know, so had I not got out this house, my family would have came in here, found me dead. So I'm glad that, you know.
And the whole thing is, and in certain ways I hear it when you're talking, it's the right people in your life. The fact that nobody, see, this is what I want to get to. A lot of times, and you've been close enough as a nurse and stuff, a lot of times you can have symptoms that mirror mental illness. You know, people can, how do you know the difference between anemia and certain types of depression? How do you know the difference between somebody who was babbling incoherently and somebody have a brain tumor? How do you know, you said it, you were so dehydrated. Well, dehydration has often been labeled with having delusions and illusions and stuff. We used to see the old mirages in the Westerns back when I was a kid, and because the person had gotten dehydrated. So I think that we can do a lot better. You agreed with me that 6.7 million children should not be labeled mentally ill and given psychotropic drugs. And I think that we need to do a better job from the healthcare part, because you just mentioned it. If people don't care about you, then they won't fight for you. But it is the good nurses and the good doctors and the good pharmacists. Do you know that I always make friends with my pharmacists? And then when I go in to get a medication, I ask them, is this a good medication? And I've had pharmacists tell me no. Tell them you want so-and-so. This causes bladder cancer. This does that. So there's a lot of things before we get to the level. Somebody's trying to call in and took my picture off. Okay. It'll be through in a second.
Okay.
But it takes a lot of work to assess what's wrong with an individual. And I don't want you going through depression or what is labeled depression, and then and feel suicidal, and then they give you a pill that cause you to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And then blame the suicide on the mental illness instead of the pill that had warning labels on it. And so basically what CCHR is trying to do is to get mental health back under the law and not be sitting up there making all this money on the death in the body of our babies and our adults. For example, if we will electroshock children from 0 to 5 years of age, we have to ask ourselves, what could a child have done that they should receive such brutal treatment? We can't do it to terrorists. We can't do it to prisoners of war, but we're doing it to children, and we're doing it to pregnant women. And that's just half part of it. 50% of all electroshock is done to people 65 years of age or older. 2/3 are done to women. So the thing is that our mission is to clean the field up. Do you know that these labels are voted on to go into the Diagnostic Statistical Manual? A book that's named the Diagnostic Statistical Manual and doesn't have any statistics in it? I mean, we have to start, I know what they teach us, but we have to be able to investigate. And I'm glad you've been telling the story that you've been telling and what happened to you and how you got through. But one of the things you had going on, you said, thank God that you was able to hold your mind together. And I think that we need to investigate ourselves, this is my opinion, ourselves better spiritually. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our health, that we have vitamins, that we get the proper medical care. Before anybody goes to a mental institution, what blood work, what brain scans, what have they done to determine that this person is not suffering from some underlying physical ailment instead of a mental illness? And so these are the things, the questions we raise.
That's why when a person came to the hospital, they call it a 72-hour hold. When they put you on a 72-hour hold, if a person's acting erratic or whatever, they came in, if you was a danger to yourself, danger to others, or you was gravely disabled, they put you on a 72-hour hold. And that 72-hour hold is for everyone involved, from the mental health worker to the RN, to the therapist, to the doctor. It's to evaluate you, see how you are, see what's going on, to watch you. That's the whole purpose of 72 hours. So within 72 hours, they can make the proper diagnosis. If they need to go a little further and need further evaluation, they call it a 5250, which is a 14-day hold. Within those 17 days, between the 14 days and the 3-day hold, that's 17 days. They should know if you are mentally ill, if it's from depression, if it's from malnutrition, if it's from physical neglect, whatever the situation is, they should know. But like I said, when you go back to the money-making thing, they'll put you on a 14-day hold and it's nothing wrong with you. We've had patients that was on 14-day hold and had to literally go to court to get released. And I have taken them to court and the judge has released them. There's people that they tried to take and get put on conservatorship and they went to court and the judge found that they was comfortable of taking care of their own self. They didn't need to be hospitalized and they didn't have no psychiatric problem. But once again, it goes back to the money. You have to get people in there that's willing to do their job. See, I did my job because I was compassionate. I cared about people. That was my thing. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives, so I got a joy out of it. I got a thrill out of it. It was a good thing for me. I got a high off of coming in and knowing that this person that I did a schedule for, you know, they're starting to comprehend, you know, wash your face, brush your teeth, comb your hair, put your clothes on. You know, I got a thrill out of helping them recover and put their life back together. Whereas other people, it was just a job. It was just a job because mental health is a money-making industry. It's a big money-making, it makes more money than the medical floors. Psychiatric, they make a lot of money because of the insurance and, You know, they get, like I said, they get people in there, even in the boarding cares. When they wanted to go on vacation and when they wanted to get rid of patients for the month, they would tell them. We had patients come in that would say, they just told me to come in here and say I was depressed. Or they told me to say I was hearing voices, but I don't hear voices. They was telling me to say I was suicidal, but I'm not suicidal. Why they do that to me? Because they wanted to get rid of you so they wouldn't have to take care of you. They wanted the system to take care of you while they still collect your money.
There you
And
go.
they leave you off your money.
There you go.
Know, I mean, I peep game on all of that because, see, I'm from the old
there you
school.
Go.
I watch, listen, and I pay attention. And I paid attention to all that. And it'd be like, wow. And my heart would go out to them because they're in boarding cares. And I'm like, well, why would they do that? You know, why? Well, this person says that they're not suicidal. Oh, don't believe them. They're crazy. You know, give them their medicine, you know. And a lot of them, they wasn't. They really wasn't.
That's right.
A lot of them really wasn't. They just needed somebody to take the time to care about them, to show them things that they didn't know because they were sheltered or they were thrown in the system. But a lot of these people that was thrown in the system, they really wasn't crazy. They had more sense than you and I put together.
Right.
Well, it can't be said no better than that.
Look at what happened last night. We had one on there last night, and what did Michelle say? Oh, Michelle is crazy. Give her her pill. You know, remember what we was talking about last night? And I said, that's one girl that's intact. They say she got screwed loose, but that girl is very spiritual, and she sees what's going on, and she's very connected with the Creator.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is what it is, but that's why I won't go to St. Francis anymore.
Right.
I just won't. I just won't.
All right, but I'm gonna say when we're getting close to that time, you know, we keep on doing these and everything, because but I'm gonna say, but like, but like on this one right here, you know, like, what do you think that we, you know, for any closing wise, what do you think we as people, you know, I know it's a lot of other races on it, but as far as us in our community, what do y'all think that we need to do in order to try to capture our people to bring them away from this madness?
Well, excuse me. One of the problems we have is that our children are being mass drugged in the probation system, children family services, all of these type of systems. Our children are being drugged in those systems and so forth. And we need medical evaluations for our kids. We need to make sure our kids are getting properly educated. We have children that are being diagnosed with mathematical disorder and learning disabilities, when all it is there was an ineffective method of teaching them how to study. You know, you walk into our schools and they don't have dictionaries in the classroom. How is a kid supposed to know the meanings of the words? But then they say he has a learning disability. And then when you go to some of the schools that are outside of the inner city, they got dictionaries. They have all of those proper tools. You know, I've been told in the school districts in this area, I won't single anybody out, but, well, we don't give them the books because then they just lose them. Well, how is he supposed to learn? You know?
Well, you know, there's a solution to that. You remember when they used to give us our books and stuff? We had to be responsible. It's a thing called responsibility. And it starts with the home. Charity starts at home. If the parents would get more involved with the kids and make them responsible. Not all parents are not irresponsible. You have parents that are very responsible and they do make sure their kids take care of their things. But you have some parents that really don't care. If they would get involved and make them the kids be responsible and develop that routine in them, it will, and instill those values in them, it will automatically connect with them and they will be responsible. We automatically knew we had to take our books to school, bring them home. We had to do our homework. We had to turn them back in. We automatically knew that.
This kind of like what I think. Maybe, you know, instead of saying that we need to really work on implementing, really creating the village for the kids. And like I tell people about creating a village for the kids, like I say, it takes a village to raise one child. but it also takes a village to help keep all the adults afloat. Because we got to keep each other afloat while we're
Back
doing
in the
work.
day, that's what it used to
Yeah.
be.
So,
You had everybody, you know, your child was everybody's child. The block, everybody was, you know, we had all kind of parents on the block. Everybody was our parent, our mother and father. You know, even when our mother and father wasn't there, they were our parents. You know, they watched us. The parents, you know, everybody worked together as a team and watched out for each other's kids. And, you know, neighbors watched out for each other's neighbors. You had neighbors that helped each other. Everybody stuck together back then. You know, if you did something down at Tommy's house, Tommy's mother was gonna get you for what you did, and then Tommy's mama gonna come and tell your mama, and you're gonna get in trouble by your mother and father. I mean, that's just the way it was. You know, everybody was on the same page, so you didn't have all this stuff you got going on today. And like you said, it's gonna take a village to, you know, everybody needs to really go back to the roots and instill things that instill the values, because the values has been lost. You know, you still have some out there that's trying, but like you said, everybody needs to play a role. Everybody needs to do their part.
That's right.
Yeah, so I think we just need to start working on creating that that foundation for the platform where we just, like I said last night, at the beginning of the last night's show, is like we all just had to come together and work and support each other's strengths and don't trip on our weaknesses. Just everybody just pull together, you know, just like I say, like I had to say, I hope I can say it right. I ain't said it in a long time, but like it takes several bodies to create one whole body. That way we can help everybody.
Okay. All right. We could go with that.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for allowing us to be on the show, brother. And you know, we already planning to do future things.
Yes.
When we do that, sister got to sing. And, you know, I mean, you know, you should make her say something before she get off the air, but I ain't going to put her on the spot like that.
Hey,
you know, that's just right.
Oh yeah, we gotta let her know she's doing a virtual concert Saturday, 7:30.
A virtual concert Saturday.
Yeah,
I need the information on that.
Yeah, we gotta get her. Oh no, maybe she don't mind. You know,
it's on Facebook Live.
It could be on Facebook, but I'm gonna get the promotion and stuff. I'll make sure he get it. But I mean, just like last night, maybe you got to do a little something to end the show, like you did, you know.
Okay. Oh, darn it. Wherever you want me to go, I'm willing to obey. Oh Lord, please let me know. Whatever path that I must take, not my volition, Lord, I'll do just what you say, and I shall do just what you say.
All right.
That's right.
That's
right. Okay. That's because I didn't heard her live, brother. I heard her live, but she was better than Aretha Franklin than Aretha Franklin was. You know what I'm saying? So,
now she be doing it. What's the last show we did? Was it who you opened up for? Was it Ron Isley or the
No, the Isley Brothers was
Morris
in November.
Day.
It was Morris Day and the Time.
Morris Day. Yeah. She rocked the crowd.
Morris Day and the Time of February 14th. Just this past February 14th, and I did the Isley Brothers in November of last year.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you can do them all,
huh? Yeah, I did the Dramatics, the Spinners, Morris Day and the Time twice. The Isley Brothers, I did the Brenda Holloway, the Delphonics twice. Slave. I did the Danger Man Award, the NAACP Award, Oh,
Yeah,
God.
yeah, that's right. You did that. That was like
I did Dr. Love, Chuck Strong.
Antelope Valley. That's when you did
Yeah.
NWSB Antelope Valley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
just to hear the Delphonics and the Dramatics itself would be good for me. Those are two of my favorite groups back in the day. So, and a little bit of Rolls Royce, and I'd be happy.
No, those are the ones she opened up for.
Oh, she opened. I thought she performed those songs for those. Songs. Oh, okay.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
those people that I just named, I opened up for them.
Yeah.
They probably was mad. They probably was mad when you got through.
No, when I did Morris Day and the Time, they were asking for more. They asked for more with the Isleys too. Yeah. I hurried up and got off the stage. 8 songs, 9 songs, 10 songs. That was enough. We did 10 songs was it 10 songs or 8 songs? 8 or 9 songs. I was glad to get off the stage. Come on, one more. No. And with tracks too. Oh no. It was time to get off.
Well, sister, thanks for being on the show with me today. That actually helped. That was good. So, some food for thought, and the thing that the Citizens Commission on Human Rights is about is the mistreatment of people. We don't necessarily think they know what they're doing, but we are not against mental health. Everybody wants people to have better health, but we are against mental control. And if it was mental health, you would think faster, clearer, your IQ would expand, but mental control is to dumb most people down, especially our children. It's to slow them down, make them manageable, and that's control. And, if you look at some of the great men in history, most of them would have been on psychiatric drugs at a young age. I know that if it was prevalent when I was growing up, I would have been on it because I was everywhere, into everything. They can't even find a picture. They can't even find a picture of me as a kid, not trying to reach out somewhere or go somewhere. They have to put a harness on me so that they could keep up with me. So I could wander off, but they could keep me on because I just kept moving. So the thing is that, and now I'm a minister, I write novels, I speak all over the world. I'm involved with a lot of activism and stuff. And the only thing that happened is I grew up. That's all. I grew up, you learn consequences, like you said, from our parents in our day. I tell kids now, we didn't get time out, we got knocked out. So, it was a different time period and a different thing. But even that was created to where people couldn't control their children because mental health can electroshock your child and drug your child. The police can hit them if they have to, shoot them if they have to, but a parent can't even spank their kid. Something's wrong in society when we look at it that way.
Something wrong with that. Something wrong. Definitely wrong with that.
Yeah, so
I can't discipline my child, but you can go out there and beat them and shoot them.
Yeah.
Kill them.
So, and this isn't to bring anything against law enforcement, but we put law enforcement in a bad way when we make it impossible for parents to correct or discipline their children. And then law enforcement has to deal with a child that has gotten away with everything all their life and don't believe that they will suffer the consequences for their action. And so we have to, and this is part of the reason I was telling Brother Buck, that we trying to pull together 1,000 ministers to be able to influence these politicians back to where we're doing things that make sense and we're doing things that benefit the community and not necessarily big business.
Right. Yeah, and like I say, and we're gonna start setting up big promotions for talking about the mental illness. And I'm glad we got Vicky on board too, because you'd be like a great advocate for doing this. So so we're gonna keep on doing this, and like I say, we push this out, and then like I say, we want to bring more people in and have a panel, and get this going.
Even you too, Bobby, because like you said you were in and out of rehab places, in and out. But then when you went to that one rehab, they were able to get inside you and see what your problem was and help you fix your problem and help you become the person that you are today.
Yeah, because when I went, I used to hate going to outpatient and all that stuff. When I was going there, again, this lady, she sat me there, and you know, she put me to the side. She said, "You know what? You seem to be a very intelligent young man, but," she said, "You from a small town?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "What I see is where you from was suppressing you. You had so much you wanted to get out, and you was drinking to keep yourself suppressed." And I went, I said, "I can buy that." And then she started educating me on things and giving me different skills and stuff like that. And I'm like, she started mentoring me in a different way. And I'm like, so then there was another lady there. She was real bad, mentally off and everything. And it was actually helping her. And then when they came and set us down and told us, "Well, we're sad to say, but we're going to have to let this place go because we ran out of funding." And the lady that had the bad mental illness, she started crying. She said, "I've been all over and never had nowhere to help me." And then they ran out of funding. So the one that was really helping people, they got rid of it. It's a trip.
Well, one of the things that I would like to see us do is be able to help people before they get to that state.
Right.
And that's our kids through programs
Yes.
that allow them to flourish and prosper. Let's spend some of this money that we are spending on mental health, on drama and art and tutoring, and let's make sure that the kid got enough to eat when he comes to school or wherever facilities like boys clubs and things like that. Those are the things that need to be funded. And then once we reduce it to the small number of those who may be really mentally ill, then we can start looking at the nutrition factor, the medical underlying point, and we might look up and find that, you know, out of 6.7 million children, there may only be 0.7 100,000 that might need some assistance. But if we put the proper programs there, and before they get to that stage, we might not find out that we have the problem that we think we have, and we eliminate the people who profit on the dead bodies of our children. And that's what this is all about. We're trying to protect our kids. We're trying to protect our society. And I mean, if you like him or not, you know, and everybody says the president is narcissistic and all that, but that don't make him mentally ill. But see, the problem is if they can say that the president is mentally ill, they can say any of us are mentally ill. And so we want to just make sure that if a person needs some type of treatment, that the proper treatment that they need is there. And it's not necessarily in these drugs, and it's not necessarily having people get worse and worse and having psychotic breaks when they come off the medication or the drugs, because that's what I really call them, is drugs. So we got a lot to do in this field, and that's why we're putting the people together. That's why we got so many organizations working with us. That's why we've been able to pass resolutions against the mass drugging of children with the NAACP, and also against electroshocking anyone under 21 years old. The NAACP backed that from the national office. So we're making headways, and we're making headroads, but we just need to make sure that the public is just demanding that the appropriate response for the situation is carried out.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm with all that. Yeah. You're going to start shaking and baking and rocking and rolling then.
That's right. We own, man.
Yeah, we own. All right.
Thanks,
then,
sister.
Yeah, and I'm sure appreciate y'all too. And hey, man, we're gonna do this again. And
okay, anytime.
Oh yeah, and that's like, and yeah, what we're gonna do, we're gonna make sure we get the promotion out this time, maybe like a week or so in the head. So that way we let everybody know. Okay. All right, then. So I sure appreciate it. And once again, we out.
We out.